Hare Krishna. Hope you can hear me.
You ever wondered what actors and actresses do when they have to get shit really fast for a movie? That you're followed.
Okay, let me see where is the sound coming from. Here, maybe. Okay. Can you hear me? Yashish? Hare Krishna, can you hear me? Just want to confirm before I start that I'm being heard. Hare Krishna, can someone confirm if you can hear me and you can see my screen?
Hare Krishna. Yes, I can see the screen. I can hear
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Okay, so we will get started with our discussion on ongoing discussion on chapter 4, titled Transcendental Knowledge. We'll go over a quick recap of the discussion so far, and we'll continue with today's discussion. So in the beginning of chapter 4, Krishna, he begins the conversation by stating that he gave this knowledge to sun god Vivaswan millions of years ago, which sparked a conversation, Arjuna inquiring how would that be possible, because the demigod of sun is pretty ancient. While Krishna, from a material perspective, he was born around the same time Arjuna was born. And in response to that, Krishna replies that, well, his birth and activities are divine. And one who understands Krishna's unique position does not take birth again. So it's not a theoretical understanding, but a realization of that, and then acting accordingly in one's life, right? So that means dovetailing one's life in devotional service to Krishna. And yeah, so he also mentioned that the soul is eternal. You and me both had many births. You don't remember your past births, but I do. And then if his birth and activities are divine, then what is the significance of that? And so Krishna then elaborates that he appears whenever there is decline in irreligion. He appears to establish the religion, annihilate the miscreants, and deliver the pious. And then he says, well, different people, they have different motivations. And based on the motivation, they approach various demigods in order to get quick results. But those demigods are not independent. Whatever benedictions they provide on the behalf of Krishna. So in this way, they are also approaching Krishna, but approaching Krishna indirectly. And to whatever extent one surrenders to Krishna or approaches Krishna, Krishna reciprocates accordingly. And if they approach Krishna indirectly, then Krishna also interacts with them indirectly. Krishna then goes on to talk about that he is the creator, right? But he has nothing to achieve in this world, unlike others, right, who are motivated by different fruits of action. And then he goes on to talk about difference between action and inaction. So that was a good discussion that we had. So many are bewildered. They don't understand what action is, what inaction is, because they only look at the surface, right? So externally, something might appear as action or inaction. But what is the implication of that, right? What are the reactions? So there is karma involved. So if we want to really understand what action and inaction is, we have to look at it from the lens or the perspective of what are the karmic implications of those actions. And ultimately, the purpose of any activities, even the prescribed duties, is to come to that proper understanding by which one can discriminate what is action, what is inaction, basically to act on the platform of knowledge, right? And when one is situated in knowledge, then one can be free from the reactions. Because earlier one does not have an idea of what the karmic reactions are. So they're just looking at the externals. But when one has the understanding, then one acts on that understanding and wants to make sure that one is not implicated in those karmic reactions. And for that, one needs knowledge. So ultimately, that's what the chapter is talking about, is transcendental knowledge. So such a person is able to give up false sense of proprietorship over one's possession, is interested in bare necessities of life, right? He gives up, he makes sure that he acts with his mind and intelligence perfectly controlled. In this way, a person is not attached to the three modes of nature, sattva, rajas, and tamas. And person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom. Then we talked about different kind of sacrifices. Krishna elaborates on what are the different kinds of sacrifices. They are based on, different. It's not an analogy, but rather any kind of sacrifices. There is the sacrificial fire and the oblations which are offered in the fire. So one is the common understanding is that of the dravya, which is offered in the homam. But beyond that, there are fire could be in the form of self-restraint, right? So in this way, there are different kind of sacrifices. And the performers who know the meaning of the sacrifice, they're not simply mechanically doing it. Initially, they might do it mechanically or out of affection or attachment to one's culture. But eventually, when really understands the purpose and acts on that platform, like here he says, Krishna, sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than mere sacrifice of material possession. Then in the last class, we discussed verse number 34. We spent an entire class just talking about verse 34 because it's very important. It talks about Guru Tattva, which is not, there are many misconceptions about it. But here Krishna is asking Arjuna to approach a spiritual master. And how he should approach? Well, he should approach submissively and not in a challenging way. Of course, asking question does not mean one is challenging. One can ask questions genuinely to understand. Rather, one should ask questions genuinely. But it should be in a mood of understanding. And how one should approach? Well, one has to render some service, right? Which is an act of showing sincerity and submission. And those who are actually self-realized, they can impart knowledge. So we discussed that elaborately. And today we'll continue with verse 35 of what is the outcome of approaching a spiritual master and receiving one's knowledge. Any questions from previous class before we continue with verse 35? Okay. Verse number 35. Yesh gyatva na punarmoham evam yashashi pandava yena bhutani asheshani drakshashi atmani atho mai. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Yeshi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Translation: having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. For by this knowledge, you will see that living entities are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. So that's quite deep, right? What is the relationship between, there are two things mentioned over here, right? One is having received knowledge from a self-realized soul, one will never fall again into an illusion, right? So we are right now under the influence of illusion. What it means is that, well, we don't have full understanding of the reality, who we are, why we are here, what we are doing, what is the implications of our actions, how to get out of it, right? So it's one thing to be an illusion, but the immediate implication of being an illusion is that one really does not know that one is an illusion, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't say that the person is an illusion. So if one does not know that one is in illusion and how that is affecting one negatively, then there's no question of making an endeavor to be free from illusion. But when one has the knowledge by which one not only understands that one is an illusion, but the knowledge provides the means by which we can come out of the illusion, then we are on a path by which, if we follow the instructions, then we won't be subject to that illusion. So, well, how is that possible? What is that knowledge? How do we understand that when we have come to that proper understanding. So in the next line, Krishna says that for by this knowledge, what will be the conclusion? The conclusion will be that we all living beings are part of the Supreme, right? Now, what does that mean? So we'll read the purport and we'll elaborate on that, because this is deep. It has some implications. It's not at a theoretical level. Well, we are all souls, and so we are eternal fragmental parts of the Supreme. That is a theoretical understanding, but what is the implication? What it really means? We'll talk about that, because that is the essence of this real knowledge. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions the result of receiving knowledge from a self-realized soul, or one who knows things as they are, is the learning that all living beings are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. The sense of an existence separate from Krishna is called Maya. Ma means not, Ya means this. That which is not, that is Maya. Right? So that is the illusion, right? So we are under the illusion. Krishna is saying this is how we come out of the illusion. So for the first thing we need to understand is that everyone, including oneself, they are on parts and parcels of Krishna. We are not these bodies. We are souls which are embodied within matter. Some think that we have nothing to do with Krishna, that Krishna is only a historical personality, and that the absolute is the impersonal Brahman. So at least those who have some understanding of the Vedic culture, they have heard about Krishna. In some parts of the world, they might have never heard about Krishna. Though in today's world of information, you would think at least somebody would have heard, even if they have do not have a full understanding, but they might have heard about Krishna. But there would be many who have never heard. And those who have heard, having brought up in the Vedic culture, they also do not fully understand many things. That, well, Krishna is simply a historical personality. And if someone is fortunate enough to be a theist, right, then they might say, well, there is an absolute truth, and there is this impersonal Brahman, which is the source of all fragmental spirit souls, and liberation means merging into it. But if someone is an atheist, then one does not even have that understanding, right? Though the theist class, the understanding of Brahman is a partial understanding. They do not have the understanding of the personality of God. So in this way, people are under different grades of illusion, or different grades of understanding of the absolute truth. Factually, as it is stated in Bhagavad Gita, this impersonal Brahman is the personal effulgence of Krishna. So what is the source of Brahman? What is the source of that light, the effulgence that the impersonal is attracted to? Well, the source is Krishna. So in Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna confirms, Brahmano aham pratishthitam. He is the source of the Brahman. So Krishna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the cause of everything. In the Brahma Samhita, it is clearly stated that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes. Sarva Karana Karanam. Ishvara Parama Krishna. We are all Ishwars. We are all controllers. Our domain of control is very limited. Individually, we might have some control over if we are working, and if we are a people manager, we have some control, not fully control. We cannot control them like robots, but within the purview of the work, there is some control. We might have some control over our family members, especially those who are dependents. Somebody who is more powerful, the CEO of a company or the president of a country, their sphere of influence is higher. Of course, they cannot control every single detail, but they have a higher level of influence that they can control. Similarly, demigods have even higher control, but they are not the supreme controller. So in this way, there are different controllers. Ishvara means controller, But who is the supreme control? Ishvara Parama Krishna. Okay, so Krishna is the supreme controller. And what is his nature? Well, Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. So Vigraha, Graha, it's a form. Vigraha is a form. And what is the form? It's full of Satta, Chitta, and Ananda. It is, the form is not untrue. It is true because it never perishes. Our body is untrue, is Asat. Krishna is Sat. Chit is full of all knowledge, is all knowledge over the past, present, future of all living entities, which is what Krishna says in the beginning of the chapter, and is full of joy, Ananda. So the Brahman is Satta, but it's not Chit. It does not have knowledge, and it's not full of Ananda either. And he is the cause of all causes. Sarva Karana Karanam. Even millions of incarnations are only his different expansions. Similarly, the living entities are also expansions of Krishna. So there are Vishnu expansions, they are non-different from Krishna. They are obviously not infallible. The demigods are also expansions of Krishna, but they are separate jivas. They are distinct. They are achyuta. Vishnu expansions are achyuta, not fallible, but demigods, they are chuta. Chuta means fallible. Though they might have a more powerful position, that is basically results of their past pious activities. But when the piety is over, the demigods fall down from the heavenly planets and they take birth as humans on this earth. And they have another opportunity to either rebuild their pious activities and again be elevated to the heavenly planets. And if they misuse, then they might degrade into lower species of life, the animals and the bird species. So this chakra goes on, right? But so the jivas, they are fragmental portions of Krishna which are fallible. But then the Vishnu expansions are non-different from Krishna. They are not fallible like us. The Mayavadi philosophers wrongly think that Krishna loses his own separate existence in his many expansions. This thought is material in nature. And Krishna is not material, he's spirit. So if we have a material conception of Krishna, then we might conclude incorrectly that Krishna, as if like an ordinary matter, he would lose his existence because he's expanding. You have limited substance, and that substance, if it is diluted or spread across different forms, then you would have less of that substance. So 1 minus 1 is still 1 in the spiritual mathematics. So Krishna does not lose anything, does not lose his original identity when he expands into so many different forms. We have experience in the material world that a thing, when fragmentally distributed, loses its own original identity, right? The dravya substance is limited. And if you distribute it, it means either you have to dilute it and it will diminish with each distribution. But the Mayavadi philosophers fail to understand that the absolute means that 1 plus 1 is equal to 1 and 1 minus 1 is also equal to 1. This is the case of the absolute world. For the want of sufficient knowledge in the absolute science, we are now covered with illusion, and therefore we think that we are separate from Krishna. So this is the effect of illusion. So we don't know that we are part and parcel of Krishna. And then we act with a bodily conception of life, and that sets a series of chain reactions. Although we are separate parts of Krishna, we are nevertheless not different from him qualitatively. The spirit soul is still spirit, though it is minute. The bodily difference of the living entity is Maya and not the actual flesh. So different bodies that we acquire, that is just a transformation of matter. That is not reality. Reality is a spirit which is within the body. But people, when they are in the bodily conception of life, they don't see the spirit soul, and that's why they see differences. And what is this verse saying? The verse is saying what the real knowledge is that you see all living entities are same. There is no difference. They are all part of the Supreme. That is the proper understanding. But if you don't have that understanding, we see differences. We see differences in terms of bodily features, the nature. So these differences are there. It's not that they are not there, but that is not reality, because our body is changing, our outlook to the world is changing, our material outlook, our consciousness is changing. And then whatever is changing is asat. Sat is what that does not change. Our purpose is that we are all meant to satisfy Krishna. By Maya alone, Arjuna thought that the temporary bodily relationship with his kinsman was more important than his eternal spiritual relationship with Krishna. So Bhagavad Gita was spoken because of this. Arjuna was acting based on the premise that he's the body, and so if he's the body, his relationships which are based on the body is in the terms of those relationships. Arjuna was trying to make a decision whether he should fight or not, and he concluded that he should not fight. The whole teaching of Gita is targeted towards this end, that a living entity as Krishna's eternal servitor cannot be separated from Krishna, and his sense of being an identity apart from Krishna is called Maya. Jiveshu Ruphoi Krishna Nityadas. So we are eternally servants of Krishna. Either if we recognize that, then we are engaged in direct service. If we don't recognize that, then we are still engaged in Krishna's service, but indirectly, under illusion. We are serving illusion, and then illusion is also energy of Krishna. So we are serving Krishna indirectly. But that is not very nice to be deluded. Living entities as separate parts and parcels of Supreme have a purpose to fulfill. So what is the purpose? What is the purpose of our existence in the material world? Well, the purpose is that we become free from illusion. Of course, some of them might choose to perpetuate in illusion, but the real purpose is that we understand, we study the nature of this world, and try to understand the defects of this world. And those defects are by design, so that we can begin to question our true nature and how to achieve that. Such bodily differences arise from forgetfulness of the transcendental service of the Lord. Because as soon as we forget the transcendental service of the Lord, we want to serve our own self. And there are understanding of the self also changes. Under the influence of the false ego, we don't see self as a soul, but our self as a false identity. And that false identity is variegated. We get bored of one kind of identity, and so then we seek different kind of pleasures, and our desires are unlimited. And for each desire to be fulfilled, we need a different form. Certain forms are better for fulfilling certain desires. For sleeping, human body, somebody likes sleeping. How much one can sleep? Not long. 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, 18 hours, right? It's not possible in a normal course. But as a bear, one can hibernate for 6 months. Similarly, if you want to consume, somebody wants to consume flesh, human body is not really suitable. We need, different kind of instruments or weapons to hunt or slaughter, and then it has to be, packed, right, cooked. So many things, but an animal, like many carnivore animals, they directly consume. They don't have to go through that. They don't need special tools to kill or to digest. In the humans, they generally consume liquor, which is fire, that aids in digestion of meat. So in this way, different, just simple examples, but the unlimited desires are fulfilled, are best suited to be fulfilled in different forms. And when we understand, when we forget our true identity, then we have to perpetuate in different identities to fulfill different desires. So when one is engaged in the transcendental service to Krishna consciousness, one becomes at once liberated from this illusion. One can acquire such a pure knowledge only from the bona fide spiritual master, and thereby avoid the delusion that the living entity is equal to Krishna. So, well, somebody might say, well, this theoretical understanding I can get anywhere. So one is fortunate enough to have someone who is genuinely practicing that, then we can imbibe that, because it's not simply a theoretical understanding. One has to put it into practice. And if without that association, or without learning from somebody who's actually practicing it, we really cannot understand how to apply in our lives. For example, what happens is, even when one takes up this spiritual process, if they're not fortunate to have that association of someone who knows how to genuinely apply, what they start to do is start to imitate, right? And there is a lot of research done in how different social groups work, and what they call social cohesion, peer pressure. It's not a peer pressure, actually. It could be in some cases, but anytime we enter a new culture or a society, or even an organization, somebody starts a new job, right? They might give you a handbook. They might talk about our values, and you might read it theoretically, right? Okay, these are our 5 values that we subscribe to as an organization. 5 values, 10 values, 14 values, whatever. And one might read through it, and you might actually even understand theoretically what those values mean. But you won't, just based on reading the values of the company, one cannot begin to really imbibe that. How do we imbibe values? We imbibe values by working in that environment. And if there is a mismatch, the company culture on paper says something, but in reality, the company culture is very different, right? They might say, oh, we encourage, mutual respect and cooperation. But the actual environment might be very competitive, where, those who, instead of helping others, in some companies, that is rewarded. In other companies, the competition is rewarded, right? But on paper, they might say that, hey, this is what, our culture is cooperative, helping each other out. But in reality, if that is competitive. So even if you have read the values of the company when one was onboarded, you probably even might not have noticed, or you might have forgotten. On paper they are saying something, but in reality the culture is different. So the point is that we imbibe the culture by observing, right? And in order to survive in an environment, there is, one has to be compliant. That means, we want to be socially acceptable. Just like the children, when they go in school and they want to be they want to be acceptable among their friends, then there is this tacit, implicit culture, and you kind of need to act like how others are acting. You have to behave like others are behaving, and you are accepted. So similarly, that applies in both material and spiritual societies. Just like in an organization, we are not consciously thinking when we join a new, let me observe how he's doing, how people are behaving. We might not be even thinking consciously, but subconsciously, that is what's happening. We are observing how everyone's acting, how they are behaving, what kind of behavior is being appreciated by others, even through subtle body language. By body language, we see, oh, this person, this kind of behavior is not appreciated. This kind of behavior is appreciated. And we start acting like that to be socially acceptable. So what happens, even in spiritual societies, even if the philosophy is bona fide, right, it's coming from a great tradition, but we are all trying to overcome illusion, and we have our own baggage of different misconceptions, and we bring that baggage to spiritual life. And if we are surrounded by, in a spiritual society, we are surrounded by other individuals who are not fully self-realized, but they also have brought their own baggage from material life, then what happens is one really does not learn how to apply those principles in reality. So for instance, here what is the conclusion Krishna says? The conclusion is, well, we should look, we come to the understanding that we are all spirit souls. We are all part and parcel of Krishna. But when we bring the baggage, in the spiritual life, when we bring the baggage from our material life, then in material life, we are all competitive, right? We want to show that we are better than others. Maybe in academics, in our performance at work, our social status, how much money we earn, what position I have, how much respect I am getting. And when we bring that material consciousness to spirituality, so externally the things are different, but internally people might still be acting with a competitive mentality. He says, okay, well, yes, how much philosophy I know. I know better philosophy than the other person. I can quote Shastras better than, I'm not able to quote. Maybe I should try and work hard towards that. And then, there are different kind of art forms that can be used for service of Krishna. Singing, playing musical instruments, cooking, and then we might bring the same competitive mentality, right? Because why? Because we are still seeing, we are not acting on the platform of the soul. We are thinking, I am intelligent. I can understand philosophy. I can understand philosophy better than others. And we try to bring that competitive spirit. And how we imbibe, well, one is we have our own baggage. And if others are also have their own baggage and they're also acting on the same platform, and then we imbibe that kind of mood, right? And so that social that behavior is very contagious. But that's why we should associate with someone who is really genuine in one's practice, right? So we take instructions from such a bona fide person who has achieved the highest stage of realization. Then we can learn how to apply the real principles in our life. So real understanding of that we are all spirit souls is that what kind of skills that we have in the service of Krishna is not important. Because the skills that we have, whether beauty, knowledge, different art forms that we might know, this is all results of our past pious activities. And the due course of time, the credit will get over. So if I'm intelligent in this life, in the next life, I might not be intelligent. If I have certain skill because of my past karma, I won't have that skill forever. So when we start the devotional service, the process of devotional service, initially we bring that baggage of trying to prove ourselves better than others. But when it comes to the proper understanding under the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master, then one ceases to continue with that perverted mentality. How does one act then? One acts with the understanding, no. Doesn't matter whatever skills I have in this life, for whatever duration, let me use that for Krishna's service, while the understanding that this is not going to last forever. And so rather than being puffed up or being proud that I am able to serve so nicely because of this great skill that I have. Somebody has a lot of money. They're wealthy and they're giving so much donations. And one might be even become proud of saying, oh, see how much donation I'm giving, how much monetary help I am providing. And one might become proud of it. But if you really understand that, well, I am soul, everyone else is a soul. We have different skills or different qualities, different benedictions at the moment, but that won't last forever. It will diminish in this life or next. And so instead of being so puffed up about it, rather I should focus on the fact that, well, am I doing service for Krishna? Right? And that is more important. And if we cultivate that mentality, then our success is guaranteed. because you'll say, well, in the next life, even if I don't have all the wealth, whatever wealth I have, I'll continue to serve Krishna with what I have been provided. If I might not be very intelligent, then I'll find some other means. So the fact that I'm serving Krishna is more important than how great my service might appear from an external perspective, right? Somebody has millions of dollars in one's bank account, right? And suppose somebody donates $100,000. Then, from an external perspective, the person might get appreciation. Oh, this person donated $100,000. That might be the highest amount that that person might have donated, or anyone might have donated in that congregation, for instance, and they might get some respect. But that $100,000 is, say, a minuscule percentage of the millions of dollars that one might have. On the other hand, somebody only donated, say, $500 or $200, but their income is itself $1,000. So the percentage, it's a much more higher donation. But from absolute terms, right, it's smaller. So we are not interested in how much prestige or how it is recognized, right? Just like in the pastimes of Ramayana, we see that Hanuman, he was lifting huge boulders to build the Setu, the bridge to Lanka. All the Vanaras are doing, but Hanuman was building huge boulders. And then there was one squirrel. She brought like a very small stone. She was barely lifting it. And Hanuman, he was moving very fast, lifting huge boulders, and he said, "Hey, get out of the way! Can't you see? I'm doing this great service, bringing huge boulders." And when Ram saw that, he didn't appreciate it. He said that, well, everyone is serving according to their capacity. Compared to what she can do, the percentage of as a percentage of her body mass, she's lifting much more than she can. So the externals are not important. No, you don't find from an external perspective what's that small stone going to do. But the essence of service, right, that is more important. And when we have the proper understanding of, not theoretical understanding, when we have realization that we are spirit souls, which is what Krishna is trying to convey here, then we can act on the platform, and we don't bring our material baggage to spiritual life. And so we say that, and we can come to the proper understanding, well, I need to serve Krishna with whatever I have. And so that's why we don't become proud of things that what service one is able to do. And we don't get contaminated by others who are also struggling and have an improper understanding of spirituality. So that is the real meaning of seeing everyone as a spirit soul. So when we see others also as a spirit soul, then he says, okay, this person has such and such bodily limitations. Maybe that person does not have any special skills or no special opulence, but is still serving Krishna. And if we have that benediction, then if we have real understanding of benediction in terms of we might have special skills, or that we can use superlatively in the service of Krishna, and we should use with the understanding that it will go away eventually. It won't last forever. It might not be there with me in the next life, and I might have to take another birth. So rather than being proud, I should not become proud. But at the same time, I should continue to serve, because ultimately it's Krishna's energy that I've been provided. So let me use it for Krishna's service. And next life I might not have the opportunity, and I might have whatever I have, I'll still continue serving Krishna. So when we understand that, then we see us not different from the other person who might not have some material opulence or a skill to the extent that we have. So just as that person is, I might be that person in the next life, in that situation. And then we see with proper understanding. So that is the real implication. And how do we imbibe that? Right? That won't come by theoretical understanding, but when we see others acting on that platform, we associate with such individuals who are actually acting on that platform, then we can imbibe it in our life. Just like when you join a corporation, you might read, these are our values, right? But by reading, we won't imbibe those values. We'll imbibe, even if nobody gave you a pamphlet, we'll imbibe the values that the company or the corporate culture has by being in association with those who are acting. If it is competitive environment in a particular organization, we'll become like that. No one will even, even if nobody gives you very specific instructions, we subconsciously, our mind is observing, and its natural tendency to act accordingly. So similarly, when one associates with a bona fide spiritual master and receives instruction, and that instruction could be theoretical instruction, but it's not simply theoretical. That's why we call acharya. Acharya means one who practices what one preaches. Actions speak louder than words. So that's why it is important. So it's not that we can gain or make tangible advancement simply by reading. So that's why Krishna is asking Arjuna to approach a bona fide spiritual master who is practicing what one is preaching, and by association will imbibe and will know how to apply that knowledge in our life, how to really act on the understanding that everyone is a spirit soul, right? Otherwise, in the spiritual society, everyone knows that we are spirit souls, theoretically. They might not be acting on it. Just like in a corporate culture, the culture might say, hey, these are all our values. But the actual, in practice, it's completely different. So it's very important to know with whom you are associating. Just because somebody is having a badge of a devotee of Krishna, does not necessarily mean, could be that person is also. So that's why you have to see. That's why acharana is very important. Okay, so perfect knowledge is that the supreme soul, Krishna, is the supreme shelter of all living entities. Giving up such a shelter, the living entities are deluded by material energy, and they are imagining themselves to have a separate identity. Thus, under different standards of material identity, they become forgetful of Krishna. When such a deluded living entity becomes situated in Krishna consciousness, it is understood that they are on the path of liberation, as confirmed in Bhagavatam. Muktir hitvanyartha rupam swarupena vyavasthitihi. Liberation means to be situated in one's constitutional position as an eternal servitor of Krishna or Krishna consciousness. So that is the sum and substance of verse 35. I'll take a pause. Again, spent quite some time on it, but it's an important verse to really understand what is Krishna is saying. Why one should approach Guru. You approach Guru for a wrong reason, then it defeats the purpose, even in a bona fide tradition. So, are there any questions or comments on it? I saw the message from Nitin Prabhu. If you have questions, if you're not able to use your microphone, you can type, and I'll make an attempt to answer. If anyone has any questions, comments. Okay. We'll move on to the next verse if there are no questions.
Jamin bhai, just
Yes.
So when you give an example of like a person that who is donating $100,000 from millions or billions of what he has, and somebody maybe 100 or 200 from the 1,000 what they have. So I mean, nowadays, what we see is in our surrounding, like some people are doing Srimad Bhagavatam. Like I mean, I've seen throughout my life. Then maybe after somebody passed away, or they have a lot of wealth and all, and then even we see that the whole temple people and everybody is just surrounded by them, and declaring them as a big person, or like a big donator, and then they are the real devotees of the god, and even we go to temple, like everywhere we see that, in the construction of temple, that somebody has donated uh, you know lakhs or 50,000, I mean, at that time, like 90s, or even before that. So my question is, when we are donating something, and on other side, I learned from my mother that, when you donate something, don't disclose your name. So,
Right.
you just you donate
Exactly.
whichever random amount, whatever amount, the purpose you tell them, but you don't disclose your name to anyone.
Exactly.
But
Right.
yeah, but now, I mean, in these scenarios, which is better and which is acceptable to God? I'm always curious to know the right answer.
Yeah. So, Krishna is not so much interested in the opulence of anything, but if you're offering something with love, he will accept it, right? So it's more about love than the externalities of it. For instance, when Krishna went to Hastinapur, Duryodhana, he had evil motives, right? He wanted to influence Krishna, arrange for a huge feast, different kind of preparations, in different variety. But Krishna knew that what his motives were. He was not so impressed. So he first went to Vidura's home. Vidura is a devotee of Krishna. And his wife was so excited to see Krishna. In her excitement, she was baffled. She couldn't figure out how I should serve Krishna. And she wouldn't find anything. Or let me offer banana to Krishna. And she was looking at Krishna and started peeling the banana and kept the banana with her and offered the skin of the banana to Krishna. Krishna saw that she's offering with love, and so he actually started eating the skin of banana. Right. So uh, Krishna is not looking at the external. He's not impressed by it because he is the provider of it. Everything that we have is given by Krishna. Just like a child is offering, I remember when I was a child, my son does that now, but when I was a child, my father's birthday is coming. So I wanted to gift him something. So I said, Daddy, give me 5 rupees. And what do you want to buy? I'm going to buy a birthday card for you, right? So, right. So I took something from my father and gave it back to my father. But he was pleased. So he's not impressed because whatever I'm giving, he already has. I'm taking from him and giving it back to him. So that is not very impressive. But the fact that it is offered with love, Krishna likes it. So there is nothing of our own that we can offer to Krishna. Everything is provided by him. So, but when you offer something with love, and that is an expression that Krishna appreciates. So to answer the question, yeah. So the thing is, one should never disclose. That's the actual standard, right? That one should not disclose the amount that one is donating. That is ideal. In certain scenarios, what might happen is there could be, it all depends on the consciousness. So when you're not disclosing your name, so that in that way you're protecting yourself. You don't want to show off, well, I am giving so much donation. And by showing off, you might get puffed up. And by getting puffed up, our mentality changes, where we want to, instead of serving Krishna, we want to see how much I'm donating, right? I'll get recognition like that. In some cases, you might see there are individuals who do disclose names, but not everyone. Just because somebody is disclosing the name, again, we should not conclude that they are all doing with a mentality to show their greatness. There could be other genuine reason where what happens is one ideally does not want to um, reveal one's name, but in a close knit congregation, they might do it to inspire others, not in a competitive spirit, but there is a transcendental inspiration where he says, oh, such and such person, somebody might have an idea, this person is not earning so much, I mean, you can make a guess based on where somebody is working or maybe what position one has. And, the person still donates. And, if the name is revealed, not the person is willingly revealing it, but it might be inspiring to others. Oh, I'm earning way more than him. But, still I did not donate so much. I should also donate. So there might be, and, it could be an inspiration for others to step up, right? Now it's a tricky situation where one has to be again strong enough that one does not get puffed up. And if one is able to handle that, one could accept one's names to be revealed if that is inspiring to others. So ultimately, what depends is consciousness. One could do either of the things, reveal one's name or not reveals one's name. But one, if one does it in proper consciousness, that is beneficial. Or somebody, even by not revealing the name, they might get puffed up. You say, see how much our donation I gave, but I still did not reveal my name. See, that's why I'm better than the other person who donated, but he revealed one name. See, I'm better, right? So now the mind will again trick you to show that, how one is better than others. See, I'm better because I did not reveal my name. So we have to be very careful what our consciousness is, right? So on the other hand, somebody is revealed the name with the right consciousness, saying that, well, I really don't want to reveal myself, but the authorities are insisting that my name be revealed, and that might be inspiring to others, and others might be also step up and donate for this cause. Then that could be right. So, it's not so much what one does, but in what consciousness one does. And that's why, the whole idea of this process is Krishna consciousness. Okay. Does it answer the question?
Yeah, in a very great narration. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So, okay, and Nitin Prabhu posted a question. I had the same question to someone at the temple here. The response was acceptable. The response indicates back to what Radhan Prabhu was mentioning, that only about one slowly imbibing the values of being part of the group. In this case, revealing a donor's name could motivate others to donate. Yes, the same point. Whereas donating is one of the best way to grow spiritually. Yeah, so Nitin Prabhu also mentioned the same thing. Yeah, so it's matter of consciousness, right? Ultimately, as I say, if the consciousness is not proper, even by not revealing the name, one can come under the influence of pride, right? See how great I am. I did not reveal my name. I'm better than others. So the mentality of being better than others comes when we do not have practical realization that we are spirit souls. That is what Krishna is trying to say here, that we should come to the understanding by approaching a spiritual master, that we are all living entities, are part and parcel of the Supreme. But if we do not have that proper understanding, we will come to an incorrect conclusion. In a consciousness won't be proper, right? So we will end up trying to show or think how we are better than others every moment. And so the idea of trying to show or trying to think that one is better than others, even in spiritual life, that has to be given. Otherwise, it's the same thing, right? You're just bringing one baggage from one domain, the same baggage from one domain to another domain. So, okay. I think, any other questions on this? Okay, move on to the next verse. Verse number 36. अपि चेदसि पापेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः पापकृत्तमः सर्वं ज्ञानप्लवेनैव वृजनं सन्तरिष्यसि. Even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. Jnana plavena, the boat of knowledge. Vrijinam, the ocean of miseries. And santarishyasi. So tarishya means tara. It's many Indian languages. Tairna in Hindi we say. Tarishyasi is to cross or swim over, and san, the root word sum means completely. Like the Latin sum, if you want to do a summation of the numbers, the Latin sum comes from the Sanskrit sum, which means complete. What is called Sankranti. Samkranti. So Kranti means revolution. Samkranti means complete revolution, right? So when the sun comes back to the same position after doing a complete revolution, then it's called Samkrant, right? They specifically refer to 14 January, but it could be any sun enters any sign, it's coming back to the same position. So Makar Sankranti is when sun enters the Capricorn sign again, and there is Karka Sankranti, and there is Sankranti for Vrishab Sankranti, anything. So it's just all the 12 signs have their own Sankranti. So anyway, Sam means complete. So by situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, one is able to completely cross over the ocean of miseries, even if such a person is considered by all as the most sinful of all sinners. How is that? Well, let's read about it. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions proper understanding of one's constitutional position in relationship to Krishna is so nice that it can at once lift one from the struggle for existence, which goes on in the oceans of nescience. This material world is sometimes regarded as an ocean of nescience, sometimes as a blazing forest. There are many analogies, description of material world. One is compared to an ocean. We are not aquatic beings, and even if one is an expert swimmer, it is impossible to cross over an ocean. Just like, you see this, those are really great swimmers. They might cross the English Channel, right, between France and England. I mean, it's still quite a stretch, but it's not too long. I mean, maybe they could do it in one stretch if one's an expert swimmer, but it's not like crossing a complete ocean. But if we want to go from the east coast of America to the Europe, crossing the Atlantic, and some of them have attempted that. The way they do is, they swim, and there is a boat which is following them, right? So they might swim for 6-7 hours, which is still quite a stretch. And they will take a break. That means they will come back on the boat, take a nap, they will sleep, rest, start all over again, right, in the morning. And then over a period of several days or weeks, whatever, and then they cross the ocean, right? Now, even an ordinary fish does not need any special endeavor. They can travel tens of thousands of miles across the ocean without any fatigue. So it's impossible to cross an ocean for a human being. And similarly, this samsara, this world of illusion, is similarly very difficult to cross. But by the expert direction and guidance from a spiritual master, one can cross over. And that is like being airlifted. The only way one can cross the ocean if somebody is airlifted or lifted in a boat, right? So Jnana Plavena, that's what we discussed. Jnana Plavena, it's like the boat. This boat of knowledge is by which we can cross over the ocean of nescience. So this ocean is what is the ocean? The ocean is like ordinary ocean is full of water. This world is an ocean of ignorance. Everyone is in ignorance. No one knows the purpose of life. Very few, compared to the percentage of the population. Most people, they don't know. So all the books which are authored, there are millions of books, literally, right? You can go on Amazon, download it on your Kindle, you go to your local library, go to the presidential library, unlimited books. They're all manifestations and extensions of ignorance. Jada Vidya hoy mayar vaibhav, tomara bhajane badha, anitya samsare moh janmiya, anitya samsare jivo ke karaye gadha. Thakur says that Jada Vidya, this material knowledge, is called Jada. Jada means does not have life. So matter does not have any life. The matter is animated when it is impregnated by the spirit soul. So Jada Vidya Hoy Maya Vaibhav. So the opulence of illusion, Maya, is what? The opulence of Maya is the knowledge about matter. So we are very proud about our material knowledge, right? So much technology, so much sophistication, uh, so much books written about it. Knowledge is implemented in different expansions of matter, but this is all Jada Vidya, knowledge about matter. And this is the opulence of illusion, because by this ignorance people are perpetuated in this material life, taking birth again and again. And the outcome is Tomara Bhajane Badha. Badha is hurdle. It's a hurdle in making progress in devotional service to Krishna. Moha Janmiya. Yeah, it is born. This ignorance. But this material knowledge is actually ignorance. It is a product, or it takes birth from illusion. Moha Janmiya Anitya Samsara. And in this temporary world, it simply makes one an ass, in the sense that a donkey, is always working very hard simply to maintain one's body or a false prestige in society, and one loses the purpose of life. So this world of, just like the ocean, one can cross the ocean by taking shelter of a boat. Similarly, the ocean of nescience can be crossed by taking shelter of knowledge. Plavena, the boat. Jnana is knowledge, the boat of transcendental knowledge. In the ocean, however, an expert swimmer one may be, the struggle for existence is very severe, right? The person who crossed across the Atlantic had an entire team of people supporting, following in the boat. This person would swim for 6 hours, take break, right? So, any ordinary fish is a better swimmer than that individual. So our struggle is like that, right? If someone comes forward and lifts the struggling swimmer from the ocean, then he is the greatest savior. So the perfect knowledge received from the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the path of liberation. The boat of Krishna consciousness is very simple, but at the same time the most sublime. So what is the context of, even if one is considered the most sinful of all sinners? So it's alluding to the position or the dilemma in which Arjuna is put. Arjuna is saying, Krishna, you're asking me to fight. In the process of fighting, I have to kill my guru. I have to kill my grandfather. I have to kill Bhishma Pitama, the grandsire of the Kuru dynasty. This is my blood relative, but also he's one of the Mahajans, one of the authorities or pure devotees of Krishna. And Guru Hatya is also a great sin. Especially Dronacharya, he had a special affection for Arjuna. Same thing, Bhishma Pitama had special affection for Arjuna. Arjuna was the best student of Drona. And killing one guru is a great sin. Is the greatest sin of all sins, right? Gau Hatya is a sin, is a very great sin. Brahman Hatya is also a great sin. Killing one's parent is also a great sin. But what is the greatest of all sins? The greatest of all sins is killing one's guru. Why? Because guru provides knowledge, and as we see in this verse, by knowledge one can cross the ocean of miseries. So the greatest the greatest suffering is perpetuation of repeated birth and death. And guru is the one who helps us liberate. And if one kills one's own guru, there is no greater sinner than him. Right? So Arjuna, that is Arjuna's dilemma. See, Krishna, you're asking me to fight, but in the process, I will be the greatest sinner of all sinners. So it is not the right thing to do. What is Krishna saying? Well, it's not what you do. It's more about in what consciousness one does. That makes the difference. And for having the proper consciousness, one needs transcendental knowledge. And by the boat of transcendental knowledge, one can cross over the ocean of suffering. And even if somebody, from an external perspective, you might be considered the greatest sinner of all the sinners, you are not implicated. Just like in the question that Maulik asked, Maulik Prabhu was asking, donation. Right? So from an external perspective, if one is revealing one's name, while giving donation. And ideally, one should not reveal. That is a standard. Just like one should not kill one's guru. That is the recommendation of the scriptures, right? Similarly, the recommendation of scriptures is one should not reveal one's name. One should not agree for one's names to be revealed, right? But if it's done in proper consciousness, now not out of false ego, and this from an external perspective, it might appear, oh, this person is so proud. Why else would he reveal his name? So we are making an assumption. But if that person is situated in the platform of transcendental knowledge, is not doing with the motivation of getting recognition, but is still doing humbly, and he says, praying to Krishna, please protect me that I not become puffed up. But I'm only agreeing to be revealed my name so that hopefully it is inspiring for others, and they might also be inspired to do service. And for the reason I am doing this, and though I understand it is very dangerous, that I might be affected by false sense of pride, I pray to you that may the pride never overcome me. You see, now this person is situated in proper consciousness. And so from an external perspective, somebody does not have the understanding of the consciousness of this person might say, oh, this person is just, bogus. He thinks he is very spiritual, but he has no idea of spirituality. Why else would he reveal one's name, right? So you say, oh, he's just, an ordinary materialistic person. So that somebody can misinterpret that. People can misinterpret us in any situation. It's not always possible to control what people think and how people think. So we should not be so much bothered by what people think. So there are always two possibilities. When we reveal our name, for some it might be inspiring, and they might decide, oh, you know what, this person is giving, so I should also give, right? And at the same time, some them might think, oh, this person, these are all very, these people have no idea of spirituality. They are very, puffed up. That's why they are revealing names. So I don't want to associate with them. So again, it depends. We have to select what generally we should not, in a close knit congregation, we might not do this publicly, revealing the name, because the common public might not have proper understanding. But in a close knit congregation, when at least one have the theoretical understanding in what mood one should donate, then we would err on the side of the audience, mostly would err on the side of giving the benefit of doubt that name is revealed for what reason. It's the same. There's always the danger of getting misinterpreted. So we should choose who our audience is. Still, you won't be able to. We should choose how we behave based on the audience. So certain audience, maybe you don't want to reveal your name in front of certain audience where there's a chance that it would be misinterpreted. But there is other audience who is at least situated on some platform to be able to understand what the philosophy is, and you will know that you won't be misinterpreted. So in that audience, it's fine. So yeah, anyway, the point is, it's a consciousness that's what matter. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, don't be worried about what people will think about you. But if you're really worried that you would be committing sin, then don't worry about that, because I can assure you that it won't be sinful if you're acting in the proper consciousness, right? So that is the understanding of this verse, same line of thought. Take a pause. Any questions on verse number 36? Okay. We'll move on. We'll see if we can do one more verse. We still have 10 minutes. Yeah, I think we should be able to do it easily. It's a short purport. Verse 37. Yathe dhamsi samidho agnir bhasmasat kurute Arjuna jnanagni sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute tatha. As blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. So the fire which is blazing, it can turn firewood to ashes. So right now, the western coast of America has a lot of forest fires. We are going through the summer, and it's just getting worse every year. Bigger fires, more extreme fires. Same thing down in Australia, down under, right? So right now they have, they are approaching spring now, and they will soon enter the summer season. For our summer season's over, and they also been having more extreme forest fires. And we'll probably have another season of that this summer. But the forest comprises of different kind of trees, and different kind of trees have different kind of wood, and each of them have different combustibility, right? They don't have the same efficiency or gradations. So some of them burn very easily. Some takes long to be consumed. Certain kind of wood. Some of them are partially burnt, not partially, but they're still consumed to ashes, but might take longer. And many times this forest fire, they would encroach into communities. So there are many communities which are on the outskirts of the city, close to the forest line. Generally nicer homes, bigger homes, opulent, of course. But then there's another, more susceptible to such tragedies. And when the forest fire encroaches those communities, sometimes they give evacuation orders, and the entire community is consumed. Everything inside the home, all kind of plastics and electronics and different materials, the synthetics, nothing's left. And when you go and review the remains, you cannot make any distinction if this ash is from plastic or this particular ash is from a cloth or the other ash over there is from wood. There's no difference, right? They are all completely consumed. Similarly, our material activities that we perform externally, they come in so many different varieties, right? Unlimited kind of activities we do in different species of life, even the same species of life, of variety according to our varna. Within the varna, again, we are limited by our skills, our guna, our karma, and so there are so many varieties of activities. But all such activities and all the reactions of all these activities, they are all consumed fully. All the reactions are consumed. And what is the outcome? It's turned into an ash, in the sense that it is completely nullified. So all our pious activities or sinful activities, all reactions, they're completely nullified. So because as long as we have a reaction, whether it's pious or impious, we will accept another body. So the analogy is very appropriate. Just like once fire consumes all kinds of woods and they all reach the same destination, which is ashes. Similarly, this fire of knowledge will burn reactions to all kind of material activities. So the perfect knowledge of the self and the super self and of their relationship is compared here into the fire. So the understanding that we are spirit souls, we are eternal fragmental parts of Krishna, and our relationship is to serve Krishna. That is the understanding. We act on that knowledge, on that platform. That is compared to here as a fire. Fire not only burns up all the reactions to impious activities, but also all the reactions to pious activities. And they all turn to ashes. Right? So, no more birth. There are many stages of reaction. Reaction in the making. So we have something at a desire state we have not acted on. You're just thinking. The desire manifests into a gross action. The desire is subtle. And then thinking, feeling, and willing, and then acting. So as soon as we act, we have sown the seed. There's that seed of our karma. Now that seed is sown as soon as we have done an action. Now that seed will take time to grow into a plant, which will ultimately have a flower and a fruit. The fructification is when we get the reaction of that karma. So the karma is compared to a plant. So it might be in a seed state, or it might be in a growing state. So that as soon as I do a karma, I have planted the seed. It's a matter of time that the seed will turn into a plant, a flower, and a fruit. It might be this lifetime, it might be next lifetime, it could be 100 lifetimes. And now, but when it, because each plant, they have a different period of length. Some plants, they fructify every once a year, and some plants, they have flower once in 30 years. There's some plants like that I was reading. They would blossom on the full moon night once every 30 years, something like that, right? Similarly, we might get a fructification of our karma either this life or after many lifetimes. So our karmic reaction, they're all waiting. It's already there. It's a matter of time that they will fructify. Some of them will be good, some of them will be bad. We don't know. So, but by acting on the platform of knowledge, in this lifetime, utilizing this rare human form of life, we can burn all different reactions which are all in pending stage, right? They're all stand by right now, but they all could be consumed fully. And we don't have to go through the reactions of all those activities. So what are the stages? Reaction in making, reaction fructifying, reaction already achieved, and reaction a priori. So there are English translations of those three different stages. Reaction a priori, right? It's not manifested. Reaction which is already achieved, that means we already suffered from that reaction. Fructifying is about to manifest. Reaction in the making is just, I just committed the action. So these are all different stages. But the knowledge of the constitutional position of the living entity burns everything to ashes. When one is in complete knowledge, all reactions, both a priori and a posteriori. A priori means actions which we have are about to commit, right? They are still in our mind. We have not acted on it. As well as a posteriori, actions which we have already committed, they are all consumed. In the Vedas, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 4.4.22, it is stated, Ube uhei vaishyat ete tarati amrita sadhva asadhuni. One overcomes both pious and impious reactions of work. One overcomes both pious and impious reactions of work simply by acting on the platform of knowledge. So you see, the knowledge is so powerful. So ultimately, the consciousness under which we are acting is what matters. So we are almost about time. Are there any questions, comment on this particular verse or any of the discussions we had today or in the past, or any other questions that you might have? So you can just take the pause over here before moving on. Anyone? Okay. No more questions. There's one more verse. Should we do this or should we take a pause? It's a short one. Either way is fine.
Yeah, we can cover.
It's fine, especially if it's late for Maulik.
No, it's okay for me. I'm good.
Okay. I'll try to wind up in few minutes. It won't take too long. Let's do one more verse. Verse number 38. Nahi jnanena sadresham pavitram iha vidyate tat swayam yoga samsiddha kalinatmani vindati. Translation: in this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is a mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time. Purport: when we speak of transcendental knowledge, we do so in terms of spiritual understanding. As such, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Ignorance is the cause of our bondage, and knowledge is the cause of our liberation. This knowledge is a mature fruit of devotional service, and one is situated in transcendental knowledge. He need not search for peace elsewhere, for he enjoys peace within himself. In other words, this knowledge and peace culminate in Krishna consciousness. That is the last word in Bhagavad Gita. In other words, this knowledge and peace culminates in Krishna consciousness. So here Krishna is describing further glories of transcendental knowledge. Well, one is completely burns all the reactions, as discussed in the previous verse. But beyond that, so it is a nullification of the negative. That's what he talked about in the previous verse. That's one thing. You're nullifying the negative, which is the reactions. But on the positive spectrum, this knowledge is so sublime that it provides the joy and satisfaction. That's why he's saying one enjoys this knowledge within himself. So it is satisfying, but does not get disturbed. So one is the reaction that Arjuna was worried about, that he might get in future, but he is disturbed right now. He does not know what needs to be done, what is proper, what's not proper. And we also think about what people would think about me. You're always worried about what opinion others might have about us. But when one has the understanding of transcendental knowledge, when one acts on it, then all such misconceptions are removed, and one actually feels satisfaction within oneself. One does not need any external gratification, any recognition. One is self-satisfied and is situated in this way by jnana, sadrisham in comparison, pavitram, sanctified. It is pavitra. In the course of time, one enjoys vindati samsiddhi, he who is mature in such a realization. So this is when we can experience this, as we cultivate knowledge and as we act on it. There are so many anxieties, depression, people are suffering, but we can be blissful in any situation of life by understanding what is proper, what is improper, what is action, what is inaction, and then we act on it in proper consciousness. Ultimately, it's all about consciousness. That's what Prabhupada is saying, right? This knowledge and peace, they culminate in Krishna consciousness. So that's the sum and substance of this verse. Any questions or comments? Okay, so we'll stop over here. Thank you very much. Thanks for giving me an ongoing opportunity to study Bhagavad Gita in your association. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
everyone. Hare Krishna.